welcome back to Trista's Reading Room. Today we are looking at Fortified. Try and get it in there without the glare. By Romas Burton. This was published in February 2023. Devora's perfect future shatters. Instead of attending Vlaclear Academy, she's sent to the fortress, a prison holding murderers and thieves that make up the soldiers in His Majesty's army. She fears it is the end of her. Suppressing her forbidden seeing abilities, Devora is thrust into the role of soldier and must learn to defend herself while avoiding Warden Hazard and his ruthless right-hand man, Captain Blake. When Devora's seeing abilities are exposed, she's thrown into a tournament to win her right to live. She must turn to Captain Blake for help or be slaughtered like all the other seers before her. This is book 1 in the Legacy chapters, and there are 2 books available. This is for ages 14 to 18, and there are some battle scenes. You can find this book anywhere that books are sold in every format. Here's a bit about the author. Romas Burton grew up bouncing up and down the East Coast, where she wrote her first story about magical ponies at age 7. Years later, after studying government and earning an MA in theological studies, Romas Burton realized something even bigger was calling out to her. Stories that contained great adventures and encouraging messages. You can find future updates and news on her website, www.vromasburton.com. She says this is the story of Deborah mixed with Mulan and a sprinkle of Pride and Prejudice. You can find her on her website, as well as on Facebook and Instagram. Prologue. By the King of Tenton. A proclamation. On the observation of seers in the Kingdom of Tenton, to continue to strengthen our borders in the face of the growing rebellion from Kadesh, His Majesty, King Atoll of Jiro hereby orders all seers of prophetic dreams and visions to be sent to the capital for observation. Should any seer fail to comply, the sentence will be execution by hanging. Given at Royal Council at Maldove Palace, the 15th day of the summer harvest in the 4th year of the king's reign. Tourney, save the king. Chapter 1. Grenly, Southern Region, Tenton. The steaming cup of tea looked like cow dung. Lady Deborah Meady brought it to her face and sniffed. Gagging, she pulled the brown sludge away, covering her nose and mouth with her hand. As always, it smelled like cow dung, too. Devora pinched her nose. She'd endured the same horrible tea for years, but the process of swallowing it never got easier. Squeezing her eyes shut, Devora threw back the disgusting blend, choking before forcing it down her throat. The effects of the suppressing tea blend would last for 3 weeks, but all she wanted to do was scrape the rotten taste from her tongue. A warm morning breeze twisted around her ebony braid. Placing the cup down, Devora refocused on the stones in front of her. 5 shining pebbles glimmered against the flat rooftop of her home, the governor's mansion. The rocks levitated from the stark white stone before assembling into a flawlessly balanced cairn. Perfect, as always, she mused, enjoying the rainbow of colors winking back at her. She had been categorizing her stones, lifting them with the power in her blood, the same way since she was a child. Blue, yellow, green, red, purple. From the day she received her pouch of pebbles, Devora had mastered the simple categorization quickly. But now was when it counted the most. "Devora, my dove, are you joining me today?" Mama called from the open window below. Her delicate sing-song voice rivaled the twittering birds. From her tall, slim frame to her angelic laugh, Mama was ever the perfect example of a governor's wife. Devora stifled a groan as she rolled her eyes. Visiting Lower Grenly was the only outing her parents ever allowed, besides the prayer vigil held every 2 weeks. Devora pursed her lips, thinking of Victoria Drazier, the councilman's eldest daughter, and her birthday celebration. Apparently it was the party of the year, and Devora wasn't allowed to attend. Just like all the other parties over the last 16 years of her life. Didn't Mama realize she wanted to go to fabulous parties, not fraternize with peasants? "Not today, Mama," Devora called as she leaned over the edge of the roof. Her braid hung over her shoulder as she watched Mama stick her head out the window below. Devora sighed and leaned back. She swiped her palm over the stones. They clattered across the roof, threatening to roll over the edge. She peeked back over the edge. Mama was glaring up at her. Biting her lip, Devora quickly came to a believable excuse. Lifting her hand, she replied, "I need to keep practicing for my categorization call tonight." Upon birth, every citizen in Tenton received the same pouch of stones and a list of categories from King Atoll and Queen Liza. When a citizen wanted to categorize, they would simply prick their finger and add a drop of blood to each stone in their pouch. Only then would they be able to practice the different color patterns provided by the kingdom. The significance of the stones thrummed against Devora's mind as she recited her daily lessons. Blue for the sky and sea, which made trades possible for thee. Yellow for the sun that shines down from up above. Green for the plants, we thank them for their nourishment. Red for blood, purple for unity. We thank King Atoll for helping us live in harmony. Devora rubbed her temples, despising the silly poem. But she knew she needed it to pass her categorization call. Once a citizen turned 16, they recited the chant and performed 5 categorizations in front of the king's categorizer. The color pattern of stones they repeated 3 times would place the participant in the job they were destined to do for life. "All right, my dove. Don't forget to say your prayers to Turney, especially today." Disappointment clung to Mama's voice as she pulled her head back through the window. The wooden door to their home opened and shut. Devora gave a sidelong glance to the prayer scroll laying atop her stack of war tactic textbooks, and that week's news from the battlefront. A crisp lavender ribbon, the meaty family color, tied the prayer shut. Huffing, Devora ignored the scroll and focused on the empty clay cup that held the obnoxious tea sludge. Why should she pray to Turney? What had he done other than give her the curse that kept her confined to the house, drinking horrible tea blends to keep her visions at bay? With her sandaled foot, Devora kicked the prayers off the roof and stood, peering out into the jungles of Grenly. A warm wind rustled the branches of the tall trees, shaking their thick, wide leaves with vigor. Even as a child, Devora had big dreams that were bigger than the small citadel of Grenly. She had been preparing to leave this hot, humid city for years, and now it was finally time. With another flick of her wrist, the stones stacked again in the perfect categorization for Vlak Lear Academy. Scooping up the stones, Devora dropped them into her pocket. She straightened her lavender sash, then hauled herself off the roof. Extending her arm, she quickly latched onto the familiar vine that spiraled to the ground. With a wild grin, Devora swung off the thick tendril and started running the moment her sandals hit the hard soil. It was almost midday, and she needed to see her love. Never did she feel freer than when she snuck out of the house to meet Tristan. No stinky teas, no forced prayers to a god who didn't listen, and no age-old edicts threatening to take her life. The crinkled note Tristan sent a week ago sat in her dress pocket as she plastered herself against the wall surrounding Grenly. Though the wall protected the citadel from the dangerous jungle, beyond the stone wall was the only privacy she and Tristan could get. Another vine brushed her arm, encouraging her to climb to her few moments of freedom. Grasping the thick emerald plant, Devora shimmied up the wall and climbed down the other side. Once she landed, she shielded her eyes from the late morning sun before surveying her surroundings. The tall trees of the jungle waved back at her, their branches heavy with succulent fruits. Sighing, Devora leaned against the wall and waited. Tristan was late, as usual. They had been meeting at the same spot at the same time for the last 6 months. Devora fiddled with the end of her purple sash, remembering how she was instantly drawn to Tristan's bulky muscles when she first noticed him at the jeweler's shop on her birthday months ago. Grinning, Devora took the note out from her pocket. Although she'd memorized its contents, she still enjoyed reading the rushed, slanted script. "My dearest honeybee." Devora stifled the squeal wanting to escape her throat. She darted a glance into the jungle, not wanting to encourage any animals to find her. After a few moments without any animal visitors, Devora hugged the letter to her chest and started reading again. My dearest honeybee, words cannot describe the pain I feel in not having seen you for weeks. Meet me at our spot just before noon. Lovingly yours, Tristan. Devora bit her lip to contain her excitement as she folded the note and tucked it back in her pocket. Steadying her breaths, she smoothed the flyaway hairs from her braid and straightened her stance. Only a few more minutes, and she would be with her love, and everything would be perfect. Two strong arms wrapped around her waist from behind and held her close. Right on time, as usual, Tristan whispered, nuzzling into her neck. The aroma of apples and honey swirled around her, jumbling her insides. Turning to face him, Devora roamed her gaze over Tristan's angular features. From his wavy chestnut hair to his sun-kissed skin, Devora couldn't think of anyone she desired more. Though he was only 2 years older than her, Tristan's jaw was sharp and his muscles thick. Devora absent-mindedly ran her hands over his biceps, thrilling her nerves. But what captivated her most were his dark blue eyes. Her heart almost leaped out of her chest every time she gazed into their depths. Tristan reached out and skimmed her cheek with his thumb. Devora's lids fluttered closed, enjoying his silky smooth skin against her own. Leaning into his hand, she melted into Tristan's chest, her heart higher than a cloud. How has your day been, honeybee? He whispered into her hair. Pleasant chills raced across Devora's skin as she breathed in his scent, her thoughts melting to mush. Good, now that you're here, she murmured into his chest. Mama asked me to go to Lower Grenly, again. Tristan pulled back, his elegant brow furrowed in concern. Did you? Devora scrunched her nose. Of course not. Why would you ask me such a silly question? Shaking her head, Devora trailed her fingers across Tristan's soft black academy uniform. Good, he replied, bringing her closer. You're the governor's daughter and will be attending the most acclaimed academy in Trenton. There's no point in subjecting yourself to those of lesser birth, especially if you plan on taking your father's place one day. Devora nodded in agreement, but somehow when Tristan said it out loud, it sounded horrible. Ignoring her conscience, Devora lifted her head and wrapped her arms around Tristan's neck. He was only a few inches taller than her, so she could easily look him in the eye. How about you? Did you spend all day thinking about me? She playfully batted her eyelashes at him. Tristan sniffed slightly, then eased into his reply. Always, my honeybee. He gave her a peck on the cheek. My workload at the academy has been brutal, which is why I haven't been able to visit as often. He paused, then added, I did hear some news about Trenton needing more soldiers at the front. There are rumors that the king is going to make some decree about a mandatory draft for male citizens or something. Tristan waved his hand in the air like it was nothing of importance. The warm tingles beneath Devora's skin froze, and she stepped away. Why would the king order a draft? Is the fortress running out of criminals to use? Her mind reeled with the news. Would they take Tristan? Would they take Papa? Years ago, King Atoll moved the military academy to the fortress, the once prison, now military academy, to train the prisoners into soldiers instead of bleeding Trenton's male citizens dry. Each prisoner was assigned a 5-year commitment. When that was complete, if the prisoner was still alive, they would be pardoned. It's nothing to worry about, honeybee, Tristan assured, grabbing Devora's waist, pulling her back into his arms. Everything will be fine. They'd be stupid to pick students from Blacklear first, so I'll be okay. And you're a woman. In the 20 years Trenton has fought with Kadesh, Trenton has never drafted women. He brushed his stray hair out of her face and kissed her forehead. Plus, your tutor said you have the highest marks of all of Grenly, right? Your mind won't be wasted at the fortress. He tapped her nose. True, Devora agreed, knowing she was smarter than every inmate in the prison. Yet as she placed her hands on the smooth ebony fabric of Tristan's uniform again, the topic of the fortress wouldn't leave her mind. What would happen if the king forced a man from each household to fight? Tristan already had a brother that was in the military, so Tristan would be fine. But Papa? He was the only male in their home. What would Mama and I do if he were drafted? Devora ran her fingers along the golden crest embroidered into Tristan's chest. Maybe there would be a way around it. Tristan mentioned that his older brother was a high-ranking officer in His Majesty's army. Maybe, if Papa had to go, Tristan could talk to his brother and make an exception. She heard that other governors had been drafted in the past, and she couldn't allow that to happen to Papa.
"What's the matter?"
Tristan asked, noting her long silence. He traced her jaw with his thumb.
"Are you worried about your categorization call tonight?"
Devora snorted. Not at all. I've been practicing the pattern for Vlaclear since I was a child. Tristan flitted the end of her braid between his fingers.
"I know you'll do great. You'll be joining me at Vlaclear before you know it."
Tristan had been at Vlaclear for 2 years already, learning everything he could to prepare to run for a councilman position in the Western region once he graduated. He told Devora all the wonders of the exceptional teachers, delicious food, and exquisite living facilities of the academy. Devora couldn't wait to go. What would Tristan do if I didn't attend Vlaclear? The absurd thought surprised Devora, and she almost laughed outright. But a warning niggled at the back of her thoughts, and she still wondered where Tristan's loyalties lay. When she first started meeting Tristan, Sir Jacques the tax collector warned her about him. Sir Jacques explained that he heard rumors from other citizens about a strapping young man from Vlaclear wooing all the ladies in Grenly. Though, when Sir Jacques described the accuser to look exactly like Tristan, Devora brushed the warning off as nothing more than the knight's jealousy. Mama said Sir Jacques fancied her, but Devora wanted nothing to do with the knight. Regardless, Devora needed to make sure Tristan was hers before she told him about her curse. Letting out a small cough, Devora laid her hands on Tristan's broad shoulders. Tristan, what would you do if I didn't go to Vlaclear? Would we still be together? The moments ticked by slowly, agonizing her heart as she waited for an answer. Lifting her chin, she stared at him with anticipation. As the silence lengthened, Devora frowned. Tristan gave her a confused look, then chuckled deeply.
"Honeybee, you're going to get in."
He cupped her hips with his strong hands.
"I know you can categorize for Vlaclear perfectly."
He gave her a winning smile, displaying his perfectly white teeth. Devora pursed her lips. He evaded her question and didn't answer how she expected or wanted.
"If I wasn't confident in your abilities, would I give you this?"
He bent down on one knee. Devora gasped as Tristan pulled out a shining silver ring with an emerald secured to the top. Inside, a delicately carved inscription read, "Refined through fire." It was the jeweler, Master Riggs' brand. He burned into every piece he crafted. Before Devora could react, Tristan grabbed her hand and slid the ring on her finger. A cool tingle danced across her skin from the cold metal.
"Marry me,"
Tristan whispered, squeezing her hands.
"And know we'll be together."
Devora's mouth hung agape as she blinked at the shining gem. After a moment, she finally answered, "Yes, of course." Should I tell him about my curse? But before Devora could utter another word, Tristan bounced up and kissed her cheek.
"It's settled then."
He tilted his head to the sky and frowned.
"My love, I apologize, but I do have an academy appointment to attend."
He quickly released her from his grasp. The midday breeze cooled where his warm hands just held her. Devora stood frozen as Tristan leaned forward and kissed her forehead before motioning to the vine.
"It'd be my honor to assist you over the wall, my lady."
He gave a mock bow. Shaking the shock from her limbs, Devora strode toward the wall and grabbed the vine as Tristan placed his hands under her foot. Bouncing on her toes, Devora jumped from Tristan's palms, clinging to the thick tendril as she scurried up the wall.
"I'll do my best to be on your categorization call tonight, and then we'll be on our way to Vlaclear,"
he whispered, then blew her a kiss. Devora nodded, still starstruck, as Tristan sauntered along the edge of the wall. After a few steps, he climbed up and over a different section. Devora steadied the shimmering emerald on her finger. It was beautiful, but something about the rushed proposal didn't sit right with her. She shuffled her body and shimmied down the other side of the wall, trying to suppress the gnawing doubt at the back of her mind. Hurrying back to her house, Devora curled her long ebony braid around her hand. the emerald ring winking at her in the afternoon sun. While the ring was lovely, she always expected to feel happier at the thought of marriage. So why do I feel nothing but unease? Devora slowed her steps, her mind racing through what just happened. Though they had quick meetings in the past, her time spent with Tristan seemed to be getting shorter. And although he proposed, he evaded her question about Blacklear. Plus, he said he would try to be at her call tonight, not that he'd definitely be there. Shouldn't my future husband support me on one of the most important days of my life? Devora played with the purple sash on her chest as doubt crept into her thoughts. She had also wanted to tell Tristan Papa may be coming in tonight. Tristan had put off meeting the governor of Grenly for a while, and Devora wasn't sure why. Tristan was tall, handsome, and intelligent, the perfect man for someone of Devora's status. Papa would certainly approve, especially since they were engaged now. Stopping in her tracks, Devora spun around. She had to know Tristan's true feelings. She was sure she was being silly, and everything was fine between them, but she needed reassurance. Devora quickly padded back toward the wall by the jeweler, deciding she would start there to locate Tristan. But as she hurried past the back of the bakery, just before the jeweler's, a familiar deep laugh swiveled through the air. Devora stopped, her foot mid-air as her lips parted. Standing where she had just stood was another woman wrapped in Tristan's arms. And that's it for today. If you want to read more of this, be sure to check out the book online and follow the author. Have a great day!